battle starts.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yuzral, the game is World of Warships. Welcome to Ranked Battles, welcome to Domination Mode, and welcome to Neighbours. We're riding with Deda Partisan in the British Tier 6 light cruiser Leander, the first ship of that line that doesn't actually suck. As to what Juno and Partisan have been getting up to, I have no idea. Maybe it was an epic debauch, the kind of which marine NCOs whisper in awe and bartenders shudder in fear. Maybe it was just a normal Friday night. Maybe it was both. Who knows? But that's secondary. This is Ranked Battles. It is Deda and 6 more or less strangers against the enemy team. And when you're playing with strangers in World of Warships, that means you get the occasional bit of weirdness. And today's first bit of weirdness is coming from Lemuggy in the Hutsaharu over to the right. He, rather than using the usual technique of barreling straight line into A, is cutting down a few kilometres to the west. This isn't actually a bad idea, because that's a Hutsaharu. It's the stealthiest ship at Tier 6, but it's also one of the most fragile and weakly gunned, so he doesn't really want to get face first with the enemy destroyers. He certainly doesn't want to get face first with the enemy cruisers that will be backing up those destroyers, or the enemy fossils that will be backing everyone up. So, yeah, not going to be barreling straight into point A, thank you very much. Of course, that does mean conceding an early terrain and spotting advantage to an enemy destroyer that happens to barrel straight into point A, and that's exactly what's happened. Enemy capture of point A has started. We have, however, spotted Partisan Poland and Mr. T Captain in the 2 enemy Fossil class battleships. Not that that's much of an achievement, you can spot those things from orbit. It's also not much comfort for Grizz, who is taking most of the early fire, and there's both high explosive and armour piercing raining down around his ears. He gets lucky, however, doesn't take any damage from that early salvo. Meanwhile, we've spotted Pech du Nub and got a brief glimpse of the Cleveland south of point B. And we've also had a quick look at the Leander as well, thanks to Kerimon in the friendly Shinonome. That's important. We now have a good idea of where most of the enemy ships are. We know the Gallant has got to be in point A. Or at least he was in point A, because right now one of the Leanders is capping. Grizz making an early grab there. Deda Partisan, however, is setting up to provide a crossfire. Anyone trying to get into point B, like, say, Jupan Dumbler over there, is going to find himself broadside on to an angry light cruiser. Jupan Dumbler's in a Leander, broadside on to 2 other Leanders, and taking fire. The fact that he's only lost half his health in the first couple of broadsides is bluntly getting off lightly. Okay, maybe it's more like 2/3 his health at this point. Unfortunately, Junio is also sailing round a corner, broadside, in front of a lot of very angry enemy ships with guns, although he is a bit more angled as far as those 2 Fossils are going. But, well, those are Fossils, they're throwing 14-inch guns around, although the 6-inch guns from Jupan are not a big problem. So Junio, thinking better of it, especially after that second salvo comes in, decides he's going to duck and pops his smoke launcher. Meanwhile, Kerimon got a brief glimpse of Sky Carrot's Cleveland, took a big hit and ducked back into cover as well. So the smoke wars have begun. Deda Partisan's blind firing into the smoke, trying to get himself a look at what's going on, or at least trying to hunt down a contact, but, well, let's be frank here, Jupan's had enough time to move out of the way, so he's not finding anything. Meanwhile, Junio's decided that, you know what, point B might be getting a little too hot, especially if he's going to stay in front of those 2 enemy Fossils. So he breaks away, heads into Kerimon's smoke cloud, and runs smack into Sky Carrot, who is possibly not too happy to see him and is also throwing high explosive. Luckily, there is an island in the way, and while Deda is taking a quick look at Jupan and trying to get those last 6,000 health off him, unfortunately it doesn't work. So he switches fire to Sky Carrot just as Sky Carrot comes round the corner, chasing the Leander of Junio VB. Sky Carrot's pretty well angled, of course, but there's a smoke cloud in the way, so Deda hasn't been spotted yet. It also helps that Sky Carrot picks that moment to eat a torpedo from Junio, so 5,000 health. He had an intact Cleveland, he doesn't anymore. Of course, we don't have a destroyer on this side anymore either, so better put him down fast. One final volley from Sky Carrot, and then a couple of shots from Deda Partisan send the Cleveland to the bottom. Unfortunately, that last volley set Junio VB on fire, and I don't think he's got Damcon on standby. Well, this is awkward. Okay, he's bow on to the Leander of Ben al-Hadid. Unfortunately, the fire's not going to be what gets him, because do you know that whole thing about going broadside to a battleship? Yeah, that's a paddling. Not that it really needed much of one to finish him off. So what was looking decent for Deda and his team is now looking a bit more precarious. It's 300 points to 220, 3 ships aside. Although it should be noted that that could more accurately be described as one intact Leander, one more or less intact Fosso, and one Leander of Grizz who is being held together by, frankly, duct tape, happy thoughts, and the promise of tea. Deda has a wee bit of a brown alert moment here. He was going a bit fast when he popped his smoke. The 2 circles popped in quick succession and he sailed out of the smoke as a consequence. Luckily, nobody saw it. He's able to dodge back into the smoke and start firing at Mr. Captain, which is having a less than desirable effect. Okay, when a Minotaur starts doing this to a battleship, the battleship hurts, but Leander doesn't have the barrel count, doesn't have the rate of fire to make this work, and at that kind of range, the Fosso is, well, it's taking the occasional penetration, but mostly it's either bounces or shatters, even against the superstructure. Another quick glance around just to see what's going on in point B, and at this point we have a bit of a standoff between the 3 Leanders. We have Deda Partisan here in the northwest, Grizz over to the northeast, facing off against Ben in the south. Grizz, by the looks of it, is going in to try to flush Ben out. Could work. If Ben bolts out to the west, he's going to sail right in front of Deda Partisan's guns and torpedoes. Easy broadside, easy citadel at 4.5 kilometers, and it looks like Ben's going for it. We just got a quick look at his velocity from those torpedo predictor markers, but, well, that's a Leander. It has torpedoes, and Ben knows perfectly well that Grizz is coming round the corner. So, one's torpedo salvo in the water, and oh dear. How sad, never mind. Ben disappears into his smoke, but he wasn't moving that fast, so Deda Partisan's got a good angle for a shot. And then Ben eats a torpedo as well. Not enough to kill him yet, but Deda is able to keep getting the odd hit just by firing on the last known location. And while he is spotted by something, I presume the Gallant that has started its sneaky cap of point A, and now by the Hydro of Ben Yusuf al-Adid, I'm just going to keep calling him Ben. It's simpler. There's nobody really who can take advantage of it at the moment, because on this course and speed, he's about to sail straight in front of Mr. T. Captain. But Mr. T. Captain is thoroughly distracted by Bambucha. I mean, there's no way Mr. T. Captain would have the time and the effort to spare rounds for a Leander. Oh. Bend over. Here it comes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Battleship high X hits and no damage. Not even a broken module. Such misfortune. Or possibly such fortune, depending on how you look at it. However, Deda Partisan is now safely behind the island. The capture of B is jammed. The 2 Fossos are in a duel which Bambucha ought to win handily. He's got 40,000 health to Mr. T's 25, and Mr. T is going broadside onto him, so citadels for days, right? Hehehehe. Nope, that's not how that one ends, but we'll come back to them. Deda's not in a hurry to go anywhere, of course, because his Hydro is about to come off cooldown. And with that active, he now has the spotting edge on Ben Yusuf. 2.2 kilometers, 200 meters away from a proxy spot. Ben has no idea where Deda Partisan is at the moment. So he's about to get a little bit of a surprise. He's just gently poking round the corner, except now he's not gently poking around the corner. He's slamming on the gas and dumping torpedoes into the water and hoping that Deda can't find a citadel. Although 5 penetration still hurts. Meanwhile, oh yeah, torpedoes. Harder port, slam on the brakes, and... damn it. Who forgot to turn the stereo on? Over to the northwest. Thank you, Sadzior. Your contribution is appreciated. Bambucha is not having a great battle. He's still 8,000 health up, but he was 15,000 health up. But surely, that's a Fosso on 5,000 health. Surely he can make the kill. Nope. He's not going to make the kill. Meanwhile, Benjusov comes round the corner and, anticipating a somewhat battered Leander, decides to pop his smoke, but both sides had their smoke generators off cooldown. Both sides got torpedoes, and neither side is quite able to get a shot. Except that now Benjusov's popped his Hydra, but it might be too little too late. He's ducking back into cover, but he's not going to make it. Except that in the meantime, Bambucha has kind of gotten himself sunk. And who left that island there? Okay, so one partial Notzer... Okay, one partial Notzer, not quite averted later. And Deja Partisan is left with a little bit of problem. He has got one gallant lurking around somewhere. He has got one wreck of a Fosso that's being held together by tape and happy thoughts off to the northwest, but it's still got a good, 12, 14-inch guns to point at him, and he's in a Leander. Yes. Oh, and the enemy knows exactly where he is because the gallant is spotting him from somewhere. So, time to take a quick coffee break again. Duck behind the island because chances are the gallant is southwest and can't get a shot at him. In fact, the gallant's lost line of sight, so we have a pretty decent moment of safety at this precise point. So, brief pause, finish the cap, and then decide what to do next. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and capture. Not that it's really going to do much beyond stopping the rot, because right now the enemy is almost 100 points ahead. They are 1 ship up, and there's 7.5 minutes left on the clock. So either he grabs A and hopes, or he kills both enemy ships. Oh, and the enemy has a good idea of where he is thanks to radio location, so yay! Someone brought a 19-point captain to a ranked fight. This is high tier. Why are you even surprised at that? Gently forward, the quick spot on the gallant, but the gallant was disappearing broadside behind the island. Deda Partisan smells the torpedoes. The gallant had a perfect launch solution, so he turns round. Should be enough to beat the worst of the solution. Okay, there's the first 3. Where's number 4? There it is. So there's a nice gap that he can duck into. Of course, while he's doing this... Oh, hello, Fosso. Ouch. He was incredibly lucky not to get deleted at that point. Or Fosso was just typically lucky. You know how it goes with that ship. Torpedoes in the water. Gets some secondary fire into the Fosso, which is enough to get him a high caliber. Torpedoes are running, but the Mr. T captain is fixing his ship repair parties in place, so he might get 1 torpedo hit, but that's not going to be enough to do the deed. He angles against another broadside. Luckily, it does not get overmatched. He was showing just enough plate on the sides to deflect the Fosso's shots, but he's still not in great condition. Pops his smoke launcher, manages to get a brief moment of respite. The Fosso's got to reload and work out exactly where he is. Of course, the gallant is over here. Hydro's in play again. 2.6 kilometers, 2.5. Remember, the motor go below 2 kilometers. Sadzior will get proxy spotting and will know exactly what he's doing. So again, Deda Partisan is not circling tight to the end. He's going a little bit wide and just holding the range open. Sadzior, however, hasn't got his portside torpedoes ready to go yet. Gallant's problem, one of several in fact, is that she's got a very long reload on those torpedo tubes of hers. So he doesn't want to get personal with a Leander. He could go for the ram, of course. He's got enough max health, 12,000, that he could probably get the kill. But this doesn't seem to have occurred to him. Maybe he just doesn't know what's going on. All he sees at this point, of course, is an angry Hydro icon telling him he's been spotted, and he's got no clue where the Leander of Deda Partisan actually is. He can guess, of course, because he hasn't been physically spotted yet, despite that he's backing around the island. And while they continue to play kissy kissy, chasey chasey, we meet the Fosso again, who is on 3,400 health. Deda fires his guns, and now Sadzio knows exactly where he is, thanks to the spotting from Captain. Of course, Captain's not gonna be providing that for much longer. Salvo comes in, dodges the worst of it, bounces some of the rest. 338 health. Still 338 health. How hard can it be to kill a battleship on 338 health? Well, when it's bow onto you, the answer is considerably, especially when you're firing 6-inch guns at extended range and most of the shells are missing the superstructure. Only needs one hit, however. Alright, one hit in the right place. It's not sinking into modules. And he finally gets it! Right as he eats another couple of 14-inch shots and goes down to less than 5,000 health himself. Right now, even the Gallant's guns are a serious threat. Last repair party goes out. That's going to get him back to about 12,000 health, give or take. So he can get into a gunfight with the Gallant, but the Gallant's got to agree and give him the gunfight, because right now, there's 3 minutes 20 on the clock. The enemy are still 200 points up thanks to their control advantage. The Gallant just capped point B. All Sadzio has to do at this point is run northeast as fast as he can. Or north. Any direction goes, just as long as it's not towards this Leander. Because if he can break contact and stay out of contact, he'll just run the clock out, and that will be the end of the game. That's all he has to do to win. But this is ranked. And Sadzio maybe didn't do the arithmetic. Maybe he wasn't quite sure of where Deda Partisan was or how he was manoeuvring. Maybe thought Deda Partisan was going to come round the north side of the island instead of the south. Because, as he clears the island, he sees, yep, one Gallant at 4,300 metres. Credit to Sadzio, he does the right thing. Well, he does the only thing he can do, really, other than face fault into a rather large rock and get shot to pieces. Slams the rudder over to starboard, starts running as fast as he can. He does make a mistake here, however. If he turned sharp port here, he could have ducked behind that island in D7, got himself a few moments respite, and again just played kissy kissy, chasey chasey, catchy catchy, until the clock ran out. Unfortunately, he doesn't duck behind the island, so instead of kissy kissy, chasey chasey, it's more like catchy catchy, shooty shooty, and the panic torpedo spread does, unsurprisingly, precisely nothing. Of course, Deda's not out of the woods yet. That is a Sternon destroyer that is jinking and running as best it can. There's 1:30 left on the clock. He gets, what, about 300 damage a hit. He's got no hydro, no repair party, and no way of tracking Sadzio. But it doesn't look like Sadzio's got any smoke left, and the jinks aren't working nearly well enough. He can need, what, 2 more hits? Yeah. 2-3 more decent hits into Sadzio and it's game over. Another salvo out. Sadzio knows this. Now Sadzio's a one-shot. He's not jinking nearly hard enough, and that was game over. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Deda Partisan came in top XP for that match. 4 kills and a single aircraft shoot down, not to mention all the assistance with capping, got him 2,400 base XP. The rest of his team, yeah, well, let's not talk about the Hatsuharu. I'm still not sure what happened there. Of note, however, is that Sadzio, had he managed to break contact and win, would have come in on some 1,600, 1,700 XP. So he basically came second in on the game, and I suspect he was cursing his luck through most of the end of that match. Mr. T Captain also had a semi-decent one. He would have come in at around 1,500, 1,600, beating out the rest of Deda's team. And then everyone else, again, loitering down in the 800s, 900s on a loss. You get a 50% boost, of course, for winning, so that roughly equates to a 1300 base XP score on a win, so all much of a muchness. That poor Fubuki, of course. Sometimes Bucky just can't get out of the way of a torpedo. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been Yuzral. That has been Deda Partisan on Neighbours in Ranked, and until next time, farewell.